For the artists, for the passionate. Welcome to the Adventures Elsewhere podcast. Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to the Adventures Elsewhere podcast. Or welcome, if it's your first time. I am your host, Jade Black, and today I'm back to talk about the Full House again. I am talking about the Grit Suit. So a quick recap before we get into this one. The Grit Suit is my general dark lit suit, so this is dark lit that excludes thriller and horror, since those two have explicit suits for them. I'm also going to be touching on the Grand Suit, about different lengths of projects, though there's pretty much exclusively novelettes this time. And as for tricks, that's different types of POV, different tenses, all of that sort of stuff. So, the Grit Suit, and where this has come from, I have always loved dark lit. Since I was a wee lass, I've just loved it. Middle grade horror is what got me into reading, really. And when it comes to dark lit in general, that's just what I lean towards, that's just what I love, it's what I love to read, it's what I love to write, but that's the sort of general vibe of the Grit Suit. It's just all of the sort of dark, good stuff. There's crime in there as well. And actually, on the subject of crime, I'm going to quickly run through a few cards I have lined up but I don't have concepts for. So these are writing goals, these are things I want to write, but I just don't have ideas for projects that come under those genres as it stands. And there are 5 of these for the Grit Suit. First and foremost is crime. I'm a big fan of crime. I used to read a lot of crime, but it's increasingly difficult to find good crime. In the last really good crime thing I saw was Department Q, and that was very, very good. But prior to that, honestly, I've probably gone for the best part of 10 years without finding a good one. And if anybody has recs, feel free to self-rec, by the way, please drop them, because I'd love to read more crime. And I'd love to write crime too, because it is such an old favourite of mine, and I think it would be really interesting. And having written political thrillers, I think I have some transferable skills that would help me to write really quite good crime, actually. And on that, I also want to write caper. Caper is not a term I came across until concepting the Full House, so I'm actually gonna say what this is, because I imagine quite a lot of people actually don't know this one. So the caper is crime, but from the criminal's POV. Seems to be the definition of it. And this is very interesting to me. I'm very interested to write this. Again, probably not a surprise, given how much of the determined ones is like, hey, by the way, treason. But that I'm quite excited to write. There are many ways you could say I have already written this. You could easily tag Black Executioner with caper, but I don't have caper as a main genre as opposed to a subgenre. I don't see personally that I've written caper, but I would very much like to. Straight mystery as well, so just a good straight up mystery is something I'd like to write. I quite like a mystery. I don't have many mystery concepts at all. Again, it's out of dark lit genres, probably the one I've engaged with the least as a writer and a reader. So I don't have that much of that, but it's something I'd like to do just because I think it's quite fun. Murder mystery as well, very much the same vibe. I think it's fun, I think it's interesting, I actually think I'll be really good at this. I just don't have a concept yet. Tragedy is a little bit tricky, because Charcoal Rain definitely touches on tragedy. It's a very tragic ending, it's quite a tragic story, really there's a lot of tragedy in it, and a lot of my other writing also touches on this quite strongly, but I don't have something that just mainlines tragedy, that is first and foremost a tragedy. I don't have that, and I don't really have a concept for it either, but this is something I do really want to do in time. But let's talk about the concepts and cards I do have. So I'm actually going to start with a mystery, since I've talked about it a fair bit. I've got a paranormal mystery, and honestly I'm usually quite a hard sell on this. This is not my favourite subgenre of mystery, because I generally feel like as soon as people add supernatural to mystery, it starts to bleed way too close to fantasy for my liking, and it also starts to, I think oftentimes you just lose what's good about mystery, which is, you know, how probable it is and how much sense it makes, and sort of the grittiness of mystery, I guess. And bringing the paranormal into it can very easily and very quickly erode that. So generally this is a genre I stray away from, but I do have, again, a very old concept here. I do have a very old concept here that still intrigues me, because it's a different take on adding paranormal to mystery. So this is a concept from when I was like 18, I think, so yeah, old. It's called Phantom Labyrinth. That is a working title. It is not going to stay. And this one, I'm not sure whether it technically you would class as a novelette or as a short story. I'm just not going to know until I write it. We'll see. And this, trying to think how to explain this one, because the overall premise is kind of odd. So instead of it being straight paranormal, it's sort of reincarnation plus time slip instead. The idea is this woman falls into, or ends up in somehow, this place that's somewhat inspired by the Edinburgh Vaults. And if you don't know what the Edinburgh Vaults are, I highly recommend you look them up. You can actually go on a tour around them, and I did when I was in Edinburgh. This woman ends up in this Edinburgh Vaults inspired place, and it's a ruin. And she's trying to get out because it is this massive labyrinth and it's very confusing and all of that sort of stuff. But while she's down there, she meets the sort of ghost of her previous incarnation, or one of her previous incarnations, who is also trying to escape this labyrinth, but is being hunted in her own time by police, people, criminals, I don't know. So her previous incarnation is also, they're both trying to do the same thing, but they're both doing it concurrently in different time periods, but they can also interact with each other. And the woman in modern day can't see the hunters, but the hunters can see her, and they're attacking her as well as her previous incarnation. So yeah, it's confusing. I have no idea how I'm going to handle this, but it's quite a cool concept, I think. I don't know whether this is going to be a novelette or short. I very much flip-flop. Today I feel like it's probably going to be a novelette, but if I was recording this tomorrow, I might say the opposite to that. I want to write it in first person because I mentioned this in the Joker episode. I don't know whether that will have been uploaded before this one or not. Who knows? I think it's easier to sell anything paranormal, anything with ghosts, anything like that, in first person, because even the people then who struggle with ghosts or any of that sort of stuff, because it's in somebody's head and that person will clearly have different beliefs. It is easier to suspend disbelief, I guess. It sort of puts things in a bit more context, makes it a bit easier. And with a story like this, I think first person also works really well for immersion in something that is so bizarre and so sort of psychological, almost, about what is happening, what isn't happening, what time period is this exactly. I think that's the best way of handling it, to really get how weird and creepy it is. I think dual POV is a good choice here, and I'm going to go a little bit further with dual POV on this one, in the sense that I'm going to be using both present and past tense. The woman in the past is going to have a different tense to the woman in the present, and I don't know whether it's going to be present day present tense or present day past tense. I haven't decided which way round it's going to be. I'm not going to do that until I'm actually writing this thing. But I just thought that it's also just a really good opportunity to play with that, and sort of again builds into the weirdness, separates the POVs a little bit. It's just it just seems like a really good opportunity to do something really, really weird and out there like that, and I think it would be a real shame if I didn't take it. You know, this is weird and experimental, so I might as well go full ham with it. Go big or go home, all that sort of stuff. And in terms of plans for writing this, I am really keen on this concept, but there are other things I am more interested in as it stands. So it's probably going to be a while, but who knows? I mean, writing novelettes is such a roll of the dice as to when I write what, because they take so little time. So it's very much, actually I fancy writing this, so I'll just write it. There's not. So I also have another very old concept in the grit suit that I'm very, very excited for. And this is a slasher. Slasher, I'm a really hard sell on as a reader, because generally speaking, I think it just devolves into a gore fest, and I just don't like that. I think that can be quite a lazy way of doing horror, is to just make it really gory. Obviously there's a time and a place for that, and it's something that Nick Ripley does really, really well, but slashers generally are just needlessly violent and often don't have very good stories to them. Like, there are a lot of slashers that just don't really focus on story. So as a reader, I don't generally go for slasher. As a writer, though, this is a very interesting story. I've mentioned on the podcast a fair few times that my first project was called Bloodsport, and this was the first extended project I ever did. I was, 17, give or take? And, you know, it got ruined in edits and all of these things, but I always loved the premise and the character, and this is the project that made me keep doing long form, because it was so much damn fun. I had so much fun with this project and just letting it go wherever it went, and that was a slasher. And that is the slasher that is still in the full house, because I have never been able to let go of this project. And that's not because, oh, it was my first or anything like that. That's never factored into it. It's just in the sense of, I still think to this day, all these years later, that the original concept and first draft had something really pretty cool going. I still think my initial concept and what I initially wanted to do was a really bloody good idea. It was the execution, excuse the pun, where it fell down. And that was partly inexperience, partly ruining things in edits, and partly just trying to do way too many things at once. But there's still a core of something I think really cool in this project. So I'm in the process of reinventing this, and I'm reinventing it as a novelette. We're cutting out all of the excess stuff that I didn't need. All of the things that I was trying to do, all of the sort of too much at once stuff, that's all just going. We strip it to the essentials of what it is, and it should fit nicely as a novelette, possibly a novella, but we'll see where it goes. I touched on Have I Got a Caper concept earlier. This is it. It's a slasher, possibly a bit of caper, because the point of view character is a serial killer, and she always was. And yeah, it was, the thing that was so fun about this project was just how free it was, because you're not writing somebody who has the same preconceived notions of morality and how society works as anybody else. This is someone who is completely and utterly removed from that. So it's almost fair game to do anything. And there's something just very unique and creatively freeing about that. And it was so much fun. This was always written in first person present. I'm not changing that, because it just works so well for horror, so well for dark lit. And again, to be immersed within the mind of this person who is just fundamentally different to how, for want of a better phrase, normal people in society view the world. It's so fundamentally different and so fundamentally odd that I think it's most effective in first person. The biggest change I'm making to this project in terms of tricks is going for single POV. Yeah, the first version of this, and I never actually changed this, and all of the ruining I did in edits, this was dual POV. There were two characters. It was, the serial killer who had like 80% of the POV, and this teenage girl who was sort of the eyes on the ground victim. And that's partly where things went wrong with this, because I tried to sort of do more with her and have them more involved, and that kind of got messy and weird and just went to places I didn't want to go. So I'm cutting that for the most part. Because the one POV was so dominant, losing that other POV in the prose, that's fine. And that cuts out a lot of stuff that I actually don't want out of this project. But losing the eyes on the ground, the sort of victim perspective, I thought was a shame. So what I've done is I've changed the structure of this. So with novelettes, you can have chapters or you can not. It's not like a novel or a novella where really you do have to have chapters in some kind of a way, even if it's just a sort of Act 1, Act 2 type deal, more like a play. Chapters are a sort of essential part of that, and a short story, you don't do that. Like, short stories don't have chapters, that's just not how they work. Novelettes straddle a weird line where you can do it either way, and I actually have done both of these. Count the Stars doesn't have chapters, Charcoal Rain does. Though Charcoal Rain is just chapter titles, there's no chapter numbers or anything like that. Has chapters, it's going to have chapters, but it's also going to have epigraphs. And these epigraphs are going to be the eyes on the ground second POV that I used to have. It's going to be this sort of teenage girl, maybe, or maybe that's several different people, journalists, whatever, I don't know, haven't gotten that far, But that's the sort of nod to the original dual POV that this project was in. Because I just think having sort of caper but eyes on the ground that was fascinating in the first chapter of the first draft. I mean, it went to hell after that. But the way it worked in the first chapter, I thought, and still think, is some of the strongest craftsmanship trickery I've ever done. I maintain that to this day. And I don't want to lose that with this project because it was such a good aspect to it. And should I be able to pull this off, and should I have as much fun with it as I did the first ever version? Who's to say I won't write another? It could happen. But yeah, I'm very, very excited for this project. So keep your eyes peeled. So last but certainly not least is noir. I love noir. I absolutely love it. This is recent. This is a very recent thing. But my goodness, is this a genre that I absolutely adore. I could gush for 20 minutes about this, but I won't. I'm just going to get to what I have concepted and what the future holds. So, I've talked before about Charcoal Rain. There's a whole episode dedicated to this now. This is my published noir. This is a novelette that was done in dual POV, first present, because I've talked so many times about how noir is just thriller's sad cousin, and thriller is just so much better in first person present than anything else. I see no reason not to write noir in the same way, given they're so similar, and the sort of quiet tragedy and creeping dread is so much more immersive in first person. So, yeah, dual POV in Charcoal Rain was just an interesting exercise, and because it was something I hadn't done since Bloodsport, I call it my first foray into dual POV because it's the first one that I think really counts, because Bloodsport was so heavy on the one and I honestly just didn't execute it very well. So this one, for me, is the actual proper first foray into it. That was just what the story called for, how it was originally structured. I mean, you can listen to the full Charcoal Rain episode to get the full idea of why that's in dual POV. I do have a second noir concept as it stands. So the working title for this is Alone on This Night, and this is, if you are as much of a dork about 1940s jazz as I am, this is part of a line from a Johnny Hartman song. I'm a big Johnny Hartman fan, I think his voice is beautiful. But, in any case, I don't know whether that will stay or whether that will change. This is, again, first present. This one is going to be in single POV, just that's what the story calls for. Novelette stroke novella, we'll see where it goes. It's so loose concept, I don't feel comfortable calling that. So the idea with this one is this is set a bit later than Charcoal Rain. Charcoal Rain was 1920s very, very solidly. Alone on This Night, I would say probably mid-1940s is where I'm leaning with it at the minute. Is that it's a soldier who comes home from one of the world wars. I'm leaning towards the second just because I'm a bit more familiar with the Second World War as opposed to the first. I had a whole big phase in my teenage years about the Second World War. The soldier has come back and he's having to leave the army because he's been disabled. And he comes back to find that his wife has left him. Whether that's because she thinks he's died or, she's just a shitty person, then I don't know. But that's the opening premise, and it's just sort of the downward spiral after that moment. And I just love this. This is such a sort of classic noir type story. I just love this stuff. I really do. I love the tragedy and quiet creeping dread of noir so much. Whether it's sort of classic noir, just give me all the classic, or do something a bit sort of more out there, a bit more contemporary with Charcoal Rain, where it's, this dual POV sort of midlife crisis into massacre. I want to write so much noir. I want to spend so much time on this because, again, it's just so much damn fun. I just love noir. It's so much fun with Charcoal Rain, writing and editing it. Honestly, I'm so proud of how Charcoal Rain shaped up in edits and the little visual details and spending time on aesthetics and stuff like that. That's so rare to be necessary and something I get to have fun with and something I can do fully confident. I don't know. I love noir. I only have Alone on This Night concepted as a project to write, but you better believe there is going to be more coming with noir, and probably sooner rather than later, just because I love it so much. There's so much that can be done with noir. There's so much I want to do with noir. I love it. I absolutely love it. And if you want to see what I'm talking about when it comes to the detail and edits and all of this stuff I talk about, I do have a full episode about Charcoal Rain that should be available now. Alternately, head to the description and there will be a link to go and read it. It is published in Shadowspark's Dream Court anthology, and I am just so proud of Charcoal Rain. I just love it so much. And I also do really love my other published novelette, which is Count Stars. That is a slice of life novelette that is told from the point of view of our 8th Determined One, that is Isamu. It's a little sort of preview to the Determined Ones. It was published in the Cozy-ish anthology, a smidge, about a year before Mr. Nakagami, which is also out now. That is my debut novel. That is the first release in the Determined Ones. That's Haru Nakagami, and I love that book too. That is out now. All of that is in the description. By all means, go and check that out if you're interested. And if you're published, or well on the way, please do get in touch. I would love to interview you and be a part of your journey. My email is on the screen. Please include all the stuff in the list in the description in your initial contact. It just streamlines the whole process, makes it easier to know if this podcast is a fit for you or not, or all of those sorts of things. A few things to note. Indie and Self Pub, you are the people I want to hear from the most. Trad Pub, I'll consider you. Another thing to note, from now on I am prioritising indie dark lit, and that is for one reason. There are so few spaces for indie dark lit, and I'm trying to be the change I want to see. Simple as that. For what it's worth, dark lit does not include dark fantasy. So if you're looking for me elsewhere and you want to know more about my writing and what I'm up to, well, if you've been enjoying the podcast, Instagram is the place to be. I'm Jade_Black21 on there. And you'll get advance notice of what the episode for the week is, because at some point I have to decide what it's going to be. And also, I just don't really know what I'm doing on there, so you'll get all sorts of random indie book hype, here are my bookshelves, all sorts of weird, nonsensical stuff on there. So if you like random weird stuff, which is very much the vibe of the podcast, then Instagram's the place to be. If you are interested in my writing and want to know what I'm currently working on, Twitter is the place to go, JBlack21. I do writing updates just about every day. I also host the monthly Thrills prompts. And I also have a positivity thread that I update in the evenings, assuming I haven't had a drink, because I don't go on social media if I'm drinking. So yeah, if that sounds like a cool place for you, that's Twitter, that's JBlack21. If you're interested in my art and world building and seeing some very exclusive content, Pinterest is the place to go. I'm Jade_Black21 on there. There's a whole bank of snippets and all of those sorts of wonderful things from Mr. Nakagami, exclusive art and comics and all sorts of stuff like that. There are also boards dedicated to Charcoal Rain and Count the Stars, so you can get a pretty good idea of what's going on there and the vibes and all of that sort of good stuff. Technically, I do also exist on Blue Sky, but I have not made time for game dev in a really long time, so yeah, I might pop in there once in a blue moon, but that's about it. You can follow me on there if you want to, though. I'm JadeBlack21 on there, and again, links in the description for just about everything. But that is about all for now, so until next time, you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a like, or commenting, or subscribing. It really does help the channel a lot. All music is done by me. Copyright Jade Black 2025.